Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys.
Hello everyone and welcome to this video on creating a tower defense game in Unity. Today we're going to start making our shop. We'll be creating the UI for it, doing a bit of scripting, and also tying it into the build manager script to select what turret to build next. We're not going to be creating currency for the game just yet, but that is definitely to come. So without further ado, let's delve right into it. So as you can see, I'm here in Unity, and what I want to begin with is kind of sketching out the UI of our shop. So there are many ways of creating some kind of shop or purchase menu. And one common way is just to overlay a huge UI element on top of the screen. But what I want to do is have the current map layout available to the user while he chooses what turret to build. So I thought that we would, instead of just overlaying a huge piece of UI, have the different turrets available down here at the bottom of the screen. So let's do that. Start by selecting the canvas and marking it as pixel perfect. I've already done this. I just noticed a few minutes ago that we hadn't done this when creating the wave countdown timer, and it's a good idea to check that just to make sure that your elements will stay crisp at any time. Now let's right click our canvas, go on the UI and select panel. And the panel is just a wide image that stretches to fit our entire screen. Now let's select 2D and hit F to focus in on the panel. And let's now scale it down on the Y here. Just bring it down something like there. That looks fine. And let's also make sure that it scales on the X-axis. So whenever we make our UI smaller on the X or our screen smaller on the X, it scales with it. But on the Y, we don't want it to do that. You can see currently it will just get to 0 and then have a negative scale, and that's not something that we want. So instead, let's just take these two anchor points here and bring them down, or you can just click over here to make sure that they snap to the bottom. Cool. So once we have this in place, we can right click on the panel, go under UI and create a button. And the button here is going to act as our turret. So we can click on that turret element in order to purchase or select that turret. So this is going to be our shop turret item. And we will have different shop turret items for different turrets. At the moment, we only have one, the standard turret, but in the future, we'll have a missile turret and maybe something that slows the enemy and stuff like that. And for now, we'll just use the default look of the button. We'll change that in just a moment. But what I want to do is, instead of laying out these manually every time we add a new button, so we would have to make room for another one here when we made a new one, and then keep on doing that, let's make Unity do this automatically. And we do that by selecting the panel, and let's just rename it while we add it to shop, and adding a component called the horizontal layout group. And this will just make sure to stretch all of our different elements parented to the shop to fit the shop object. So if I make another shop turret item and another one, you can see that they are resized and repositioned so that they fill out the entire shop object. However, we don't necessarily want them to be stretched. I just want them to be positioned and then have every item be some kind of fixed size. I want them to be about 100 by 100 pixels and then have Unity place them for me. So in order to do this, we simply disable child force expand on the width and height. And you can see that makes them super small. And the reason why is we need to go into these, and I'll just select all of them to edit them all at once, and add what is called a layout element. And the layout element allows us to choose a preferred width and height. In our case, that's going to be 100 by 100. So you can see that working already, excuse me. And what we want to do now is just have these snap to the very center of our shop. You can see currently they align by the upper left corner. Instead, we want the middle center. So you can see that already looks much better. Then what I want to do is go ahead and just disable the image of our shop. You can have some kind of background image, some kind of dark image maybe if you want to. It's completely up to you, but I will just go ahead and disable that entirely. So we have these 3 buttons, and let's just delete the 2 other ones and focus on the first one here. And the idea that I had for this is that instead of using the default UI sprite, let's have an icon that represents our turret. And there are a billion different ways of creating icons. You could also just use the text as is here and just call it the standard turret, and that would be fine. You could go in and hand draw something in some kind of art program, or you could just take a screenshot of the turret that you've created. In our case, we have a prefab here called standard turret. We could just throw that into the scene, take a screenshot, and if you want to be really cool about this, you can remove the background from that screenshot, so we have a turret on a transparent background. And I think that will look super cool for what we're doing here, kind of what we have down here actually. And this is a very easy thing to use for screenshots. So let's just select the standard turret and let's expand this here. And you can expand it in any way you want and get a nice angle on this. And then bring up whatever you use to take screenshots. In case you're using Windows, we'll be using the snipping tool. There are also commands to do this. Click New, and then click and drag to take a screenshot. Something like that, and you can save that. And if you're on a Mac, you can use Command-Shift-4, and you can then choose a region of the screen and take a screenshot of that. And then you can import it into some kind of image editing software. I use Photoshop as my preferred software and remove the background. And I've gone ahead and done that already, so you don't have to if you are using the same model as I am. And it's in the Tower Defense Assets pack. Download link is in the description. And if we double click that after you downloaded it and unwrapped it and go under sprites, you can see that we have the standard turret icon. And I've gone ahead and added, whoops, you cannot see it on the black background, but you can see it here. And now that turned black, of course. Windows, why are you doing this? But I've actually added a small drop shadow to this as well, and just played around with the lighting to make it look really nice. So you can see we have the PNG file here that you can just go ahead and use, or in case you're using Photoshop and want to copy my settings or change something, I've included the Photoshop document as well. So you can edit that if you want to. And if you have Photoshop installed, I recommend that you just import the Photoshop file into Unity. That will work just fine, and then you can easily edit it. So, but I'm just going to be using, or you should use PNG if you don't have it, and in my case I'll use the Photoshop version. Let's take this, drag it into Unity, and let's just drag it into our project here. And we can go in here and we can rename this. I want to just get rid of the PSD there. There's no reason for it to stay that inside of Unity. We can then change the texture type to Sprite, 2D, and UI. Go down here and select 512 by 512, which the image is already, and change this to true color. We don't want any compression on that image. Then let's hit apply, and you can see that it's here on a transparent background. So that's perfect. And now this is ready to use in our game. So we can find our shop turret item and we can drag this into our UI sprite here, our source image. And now, boom, it's changed. So that's a super easy way and a really cool looking way of creating a cool icon to use for pretty much any kind of shop item. If you're creating an inventory system or an RPG or something, this is a very common way of creating item icons. So we can just take our text here and disable that. We might use that later to display the name or the price, but for now we'll just have it disabled. And everything else should be working. And the cool thing about doing it this way is that if we hit play now, you can see that our object will actually get tinted both when we hover over, however that is kind of subtle, and when we click it. You will also notice that it gets highlighted after we click it, and then we have to click away in order to de-highlight it. And that's because we have to change our navigation to none, because we're using a mouse to navigate with, and we don't want to be able to shift between UI elements using the arrow keys or a controller. Cool, and we can maybe take the highlighted color here, which is your hover over color, and just make that a bit darker just to make it a bit more apparent to the user that he's able to click this. Cool, so I think that looks super cool, and will keep on looking cool when we create more of these. So let's take this and drag it down into the prefabs folder in order to make a prefab out of it. So the next thing that we are going to be doing is hooking this up to some kind of shop script. And we'll have to, of course, create that first. So let's find our shop, let's hit add component and make a new script called shop. Cool, let's double click this to open it up in Visual Studio, and it opened up on my secondary monitor, so here it is. And let's remove the using system.collections namespace. And we can go ahead and remove the two other methods for now at least as well. And what we want to do here is have a public void called, let's say, purchase standard turret. And this will be able to be called from our UI element because we have it public here. And this will communicate with the build manager and also with your currency amount and stuff like that later, in order to make sure that you select that turret and we're able to build it. Do you have enough money for it? And it will subtract the amount of money that it takes. And it will also handle different UI things, such as maybe removing or closing down the shop when you have selected a turret until you place that turret, and then it will open back up the shop, stuff like that. But for now, we'll just have it in here as a base, and we'll just put a debug.log here, standard turret purchased. Okay, and we can go ahead and duplicate this if we want multiple turrets. So we can just make another one here, maybe called purchase another turret, and this will very soon be a missile turret or something like that, but another turret purchased, and you can have multiple methods in here. So let's just use that for now, and it's very easy to hook UI elements up to that script here. What we simply do is we find our shop turret item, we add an on-click event, we drag our shop into that and go under function, shop, and then find the method that we want to call. In our case, we want to call the purchase standard turret. And everything else looked great, so let's hit apply on that. And now when we go in here and hit play and click our turret, it will say standard turret purchased. So that's perfect. And we can go ahead and create more of these. Let's just have 2 in here and have this be, this is the shop turret item. This is the second one. So we can make this the maybe standard turret item, and we can make this the another turret item, something like that. And we can go in here and make it call purchase another turret instead. And we can maybe just tint this a bit, just so we know that it's a different element. And you can go in here now and press the first one and it will say standard turret purchased, and press the second one and it will say another turret purchased. So that is indeed working, and it's very easy now for us to add new turrets to the game. Okay, so this the last part of doing this is actually selecting that turret. And if we go ahead and find our build manager, I actually just want to correct this a bit because I think we should make the distance between these two UI elements a bit greater. So let's go in here and select the shop and add a bit of spacing. Excuse me. I'll have to take a sip of water for this. Okay, and we're ready to go. So let's just add a spacing of something like 10 pixels just to move them a bit further apart. That's a lot better. And I'll just, because I don't like looking at it, go in and remove the color there as well. And now let's find our game master, find our build manager, and double click it to open it up in Visual Studio. And you can see that we have a bunch of things in here. The first one is the awake method. That was just for handling the singleton instance. And we have all of that up here. Then we have our public game object, which stores our standard turret prefab so that at the start of the game, we can make sure we have that selected. I think what we should do instead is remove that. so that we don't select this at the start of the game, and then have it only be selected when you actually go and press that turret item. And we can go in here and add another prefab. So this will be another turret prefab. And we can make sure that we can select that as well. So you can actually choose what turret to build. Cool. And that all seems fine. And then what we can do is we can add another method in here, one called public void. And this will be the set turret to build. So this can be called from other methods, and it will change what turret we want to build. And we want, of course, to pass in a game object turret. And it will set turret to build equal to whatever was passed in. And the cool thing now is we can head into our shop and we can create a reference to our build manager. And we have that by using build manager.instance. But let's just make sure that we cache this up here just to make things a bit simpler to read. So we'll add the in the start method, we'll set our private build manager variable equal to build manager.instance. And then when we purchase the standard turret, we will still write out standard turret purchased. And then we'll say build manager dot set turret to build. And then we'll use the fact that we have access to that turret. So we'll say build manager dot standard turret prefab. So it will set the turret that we want to build to the standard turret. And we will do the same down here. So under the another turret purchased, we'll say build manager dot set turret to build manager dot another turret prefab. And this should actually work. However, currently at the beginning of the game, our turret to build will be null. And we don't want to build anything that is null. That will just create an error. So what we'll do is we'll open up our node script. So double click on node script, and you can see we have a bunch of code in here. But most importantly, under our on mouse down, we want to find our turret to build here, and then say, actually we can do this at the very beginning here. So we can say if, and then we want to use the build manager.instance. So let's store this as well, just as we did before. So we'll create up here, we'll have a build manager, and we'll just call this build manager. And in the start method, we'll set build manager equal to build manager.instance. And then here, right before we do anything in the on mouse down, we can say that if build manager.get turret to build is equal to null, well then we is equal to null, well then we simply want to return. Then we don't want to do anything in here. And down here we can simply write build manager now instead of build manager.instance. So we've cached that once again. And another place that we can take this code is down under the on mouse enter to make sure that we will only highlight the different nodes when we hover over them. We will only do that hover animation when we actually have a turret to build. Or else the user will be incentivized to press that node and nothing will happen and he will think, wow, that's weird. So we'll make sure to only show the user that that can be done if we have a turret selected. We won't do this on the on mouse exit because then we would be able to build something, have the turret to build be equal to null, and then have that node just be highlighted for the rest of the game. That would be weird. So we'll make sure to always disable it. And that was pretty much it, I believe. So if we hit play now, we should be able to, you can see we can hover over these two. There's no hover animation here and nothing happens when we press the map. Then if I select a turret, say the standard turret, we're now able to place that around the map. And if I switch to the other turret here, you can see that the turret that we just placed were standard turrets. Well, then we can actually place those as well. However, one thing is happening, and that is it's acting as if the turret to place is null. And the reason why is that it is. So if we go ahead and find our game master, you can see it's because we haven't dragged a prefab under the another turret prefab. And therefore, when we set our turret to build equal to another turret, it became equal to null. And so nothing happened. So let's just make sure to drag some kind of prefab in here. And we'll just take the standard turret and duplicate it. And we'll call this one another turret. And all we'll do is we'll change the range here to be double and the fire rate to be half, just so we can see a difference between the two. And then we can find our game master script again and drag the another turret prefab in there. So now when we hit play and we find here another turret and click, you can see that another turret is built. And you can see the difference here. It has a super long range, whereas this turret here only has a very short one. Okay, cool. So now that we have that in place, we should actually go down here and change these debug.log statements, because we are actually not purchasing the turret here. We're only selecting what we want to build. And therefore, it might be better to say selected. But exactly when we want to subtract the amount of money and stuff like that is something that we'll determine in a later video. So we'll just keep the method names here for now, and then we can maybe change it later. But I'll just change the debug.log statement for now. Awesome. So the very last thing that I want to do before leaving you is when we hit play now and we hover over something that is, and select a turret, and we hover over something here that is beneath our icon, you can see it still gets highlighted. And if, in fact, if I press something beneath our icon, the turret still gets set. And I just want to avoid this. And the way that we do this very easily is by going into Unity, finding our node here, and right up here we want to use Unity Engine .event systems. And we want to, down here under on mouse enter, we want to check if we are currently hovering over a UI element that is in the way. And we do that by using if, and then event systems, or event system dot current dot is pointer over game object, and that's a function, so we'll have to open and close some parentheses, and if it is, well, then we want to return. Okay, so this is simply is the pointer with the given ID over an event system object, and if it is, then we just exit out of this on mouse enter, and we do the same up here with on mouse down. So that should actually just get rid of that very easily. And now you can see when we select this, nothing is highlighted. And in fact, I can press like crazy here and nothing will get built. And it's the same with the other turret. So we will make sure now, we have made sure now that the UI actually blocks that kind of behavior. So that was all I wanted to show for this video. Stuff to come is maybe closing and opening the shop or something like that. Definitely some currency and yeah, and some other turrets. I definitely want to add a missile launcher to the game. That would be so cool. So that's pretty much it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much to all of the awesome Patreon supporters who donated in July, and a special thanks to Vixian, Fimazone, Andrew K, and Lux Game TV. These videos wouldn't be possible without you.